Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It is 8 in the morning. For those of you watching live, for those of you watching later, I'm not sure what time it is. But good morning. Here we are. It's Friday. Pretty good day. Uh, Connor, how do we okay? How do we always start these Q&As? Is it small? It's Connor's assessment bias of the current weather situation. Current weather situation, you know what? It's actually kind of pleasant out. So it's gonna rain, and I'm big into that. I like rain. I hate humidity. I hate heat. So I'm hoping we're gonna get some okay weather, but who knows? I am. I was so we had a client event yesterday, our Glow Back to the '80s, which was really really cool. And I had a blast. But I heard from multiple people that you actually listen to this while you drive. And I have geared this so much towards people watching me that I feel I've left you all out. So allow me, for those of you who are listening while you are driving, to offer you some engagement. So really nice driving. I think you're driving really well. Uh, you know, nice turn signal. You seem to be going the speed limit. That's awesome. Uh, I hope that you have a safe rest of your drive. I'm going to get back to speaking to the camera now, but for those of you driving, hey, nice job. Honk your horn. Uh, should we get into it? It's a rhetorical question because nobody asked it, but I'll answer. Yeah, Connor, we should get into it. Okay. So I got a couple of things to go over this week. Um, the first thing, I had a great question brought up by a staff yesterday at the event, that I'm going to kind of take some time to answer quick here. And it revolved around like sort of med management almost. So she had a client who was not feeling great, had a headache. And the client said, "Hey, you got any ibuprofen on you?" And staff handled it great. I want to say, she did, but we can't really be administering medications to our clients. And I know I want to start out by saying, man, that seems nitpicky. It is, but rules are nitpicky, right? Um, can we be giving medications, handing over stuff like that to our clients? No. And it seems innocuous. But what if that client was actually allergic to ibuprofen and she needed naproxen or something, right? And she just said the wrong thing. I think that it is important to remember that the rules actually do exist sort of for a reason, and in this instance the reason is I want to keep my client safe. So in the event that a client says, hey, oh man, headache or something, could I borrow a Tylenol? No. Oh my gosh, I don't have any. And that might be patently false, but I'm going to say no, because we really cannot be giving our clients medication, handing over medication, anything like that. And I thought that was a very very good question. So I wanted to address it quickly from the start. The second question is actually a question that I've received multiple times, kind of over my tenure here, actually. But I had a staff reach out recently and thought, you know what, I haven't talked about this in a while, and I certainly haven't talked about it on camera. So I may as well get into it right after I take a sip of coffee, because it is 8 in the morning. Oh, that's good. Uh Questions often revolve around what DBT is, kind of how clients participate in it, and all of these kinds of just general questions. How do we walk through it? And it is something that is actually decently common for our clients to engage in. Before I get into this, disclaimer: I am not a practicing licensed psychologist, clinician, or anything like that. So I'm not trying to prescribe anything. I'm not trying to treat anything. I am, however, trying to explain to you kind of the therapeutic ideas behind DBT and how you might be able to see that at work with your clients. So, uh, please don't take this. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I'm not a therapist. This is not therapeutic advice. With that out of the way, so I don't get in trouble. Um, uh, Important to understand that DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, is actually kind of an offshoot of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a broad set almost of therapeutic tools. And one of the a couple of salient things about cognitive behavioral therapy is that it is generally speaking time limited. It's not sort of like an ongoing, you're doing this for 20 years. The idea is teach skills that you can use and practice in your life to address acute issues. um it is also something it can be put into a manual, right? In theory, a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy is something that can kind of be taught almost in an autodidactic kind of way, right? You are teaching yourself. You are going through these things. It is reflective, and then you are learning skills to be able to do that. And so it should come as no surprise that a behavioral therapy that's an offshoot of CBT, DBT, functions similarly, right? Um, it is very, very common with clients and patients who have issues with emotional regulation, right? Um, this was originally developed as a therapeutic technique for people who had borderline personality disorder, and then has since been shown to be pretty efficacious in kind of a number of different therapeutic ways, with a number of different diagnoses. But one of the key features is practicing and working on and dealing with emotional regulation. All right. Um, and just like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy is not necessarily concerned so much with a bunch of your past, right? I think that when people think about a lot of talk therapies, they have this sort of idea from goodness, I guess, back when sort of like a psychoanalytic therapy was very common, and it would be, you're on sort of a chase lounge and they're like, okay, well, how was your childhood and stuff. These therapies are not necessarily super concerned with that. Instead, they are much more concerned with what issues are you facing right now, what tools can we teach you to address them, and how can we make sure that you continue to utilize those tools as best to you, and be able to learn new skills as you encounter more stuff in life. DBT is unique because it's kind of broken up into 2 to 3 different parts. All right. And you might hear clients talk about this when they are engaged in DBT. Uh, First is going to be individual therapy. Okay. That is where they are working with a one on one with a clinician, with a therapist, to kind of go through how do we sort of reduce these behaviors, very specific to themselves, right? How do we limit behaviors that are kind of getting in our way? How are we going to utilize the skills that we will learn and talk about later to accomplish goals and to increase your life satisfaction and the engagement and the things that you want to do? And then also, how do we utilize one-on-one therapy to really keep reinforcing any kind of skills building that we were working on previous? Um, in order for it to again be kind of, useful, efficacious, and apply to our own lives. These sessions are usually about an hour long, which is decently standard. And there is a unique facet often of DBT where they are keeping a journal or a diary, where they will kind of talk through their emotions and what they encounter during the week and how they may be or maybe not applying the things that they've learned in therapy, right? And those are going to be things that the therapist will go through with that client. Then there's group training. And I say group training because I'm trying really hard to avoid the term group therapy, because I think oftentimes, at least I will say this, in my experience, when I have been explaining this to folks, whether that is a client who is curious about what this might mean, or a staff who is trying to support their client in attending DBT, uh, you hear group therapy and you think that it is a circle of people telling their experiences, and we kind of work through that as a group. That is not usually how DBT works. It is much more kind of like a classroom setting, where they are learning skills to help them address kind of the needs that they are facing, right? And so some of these skills are going to be things like uh distress tolerance. uh if we're talking a lot about how DBT is a pretty efficacious therapy for issues with emotional regulation, it makes sense that we want to teach tools that could be useful, helpful during times of distress, when we are emotionally distraught and upset. And that is kind of helping people understand how they may handle, manage, and deal with emotions during a stressful time without responding to harmful behaviors, without responding to behaviors that end up causing more problems in the long run, right? So distress tolerance is part of it. Mindfulness, you'll hear me talk a lot about mindfulness, kind of in a lot of different ways. When I'm talking about positive psychology, or in this case, when I'm talking about skills that we can utilize for DBT, that a lot of clients will find very helpful. Mindfulness is kind of this practice of being obviously very aware. Important to remember, in case you forgot, that DBT is very much a biosocial model of behavior, right? That the way that our bodies react influence kind of our emotional states, and likewise. And so if we can kind of bifurcate the two, if we can separate the two, if we can understand both, then we may be able to limit our emotional reaction, right? If I get angry, I can understand what's happening in my body, right? My cheeks are getting flushed. I'm hearing my heartbeat in my ears. I'm tense. I am grouchy. Uh, that doesn't necessarily mean, though, even though I'm displaying sort of a physiological response, that I need to then give into kind of the emotional response of being angry, right? I can recognize that I'm starting to get that way and say, but Connor, you shouldn't be grouchy, right? Um, Probably a little bit more serious than that, but the example holds. And that's really actually super helpful. And so mindfulness is a very common, a bunch of different mindfulness practices are really common to learn and to equip ourselves with when we are going through DBT, when a client's going through DBT. Interpersonal sort of effectiveness. How do I set boundaries? How do I discuss my needs with people without being angry, right? Without uh how do I deal with these sort of things with a respect for the individual who is near me, right? And how do I continue to remain respectful of myself, right? How do I make sure that I'm not doing things that I don't wish to do, or anything like that? Um, and so I think that interpersonal effectiveness is obviously, again, very common, and it is very useful. It's a great skill for them to be able to have. And then broadly, emotional regulation, right? Um, Being aware of your emotional states, and how do I control when I am feeling angry, that doesn't impact me, or that doesn't drive. I can feel angry, but I don't want that necessarily to impact my relationship with people around me, right? I How do I make sure that that is not getting me kicked out of Target because I'm yelling at the person who's checking me out, right? And so it's sort of teaching those emotional regulation skills. And again, this is done in a group, but it is not meant to be like a group therapy thing, right? This is really kind of like classroom training. And then skills that they learn during those group training sessions are things that they reflect on one with their therapist. All right. Um, there's also sometimes, and I say sometimes, because it really depends on the individual diagnosis and treatment plan. So, and again, I'm just gonna, in case you're just tuning in, I'm not a licensed psychologist. I am not a practicing clinician. This is not me trying to diagnose or treat anything. But I do have obviously like a knowledge of these things. Um, There is also oftentimes a component of like a remote crisis counseling or coaching aspect to this, right? Where if I am feeling very angry or I am feeling very upset, or again, I like this was originally developed for people with BPD, borderline personality disorder. If I'm feeling like I need to self harm or something like that, they can call this sort of component of therapy that is a sort of a crisis coaching or counseling hotline almost, and then sort of receive some immediate kind of crisis de-escalation, work on those skills. Um, those are the components of DBT. And so I've received a lot of questions about that historically, and I just had a recent one, so I figure why not go over it. How can we help? Right now, again, I'm not asking you guys to participate in therapy. I don't think that that's helpful. I'm not asking you guys to go to the group therapy training. That is not something that we are allowed to do. I don't really want that. However, there are, I think, ways that I have seen my clients try to interact and participate with their DBT. And it is helpful for me when I'm working a session potentially to assist them with that, right? Something that is fairly common with these types of therapies. Um, are things like homework, right? Things to work through or think about. And sometimes I'll head to a coffee shop or something with a client, and they'll want to work on these skills and talk about them and try to help get through this in kind of a real life setting, right? And so every now and then I might find myself saying, okay, well, how might that look, right? Here's what it says on the worksheet. Do you feel like that might be helpful? And if it is, maybe put that in your journal, right? Helping them kind of pick out areas that I might see that they may not notice that could be helpful to talk about, right? Helping remind them that they have been going to these classes. They have tools, right? Let's utilize these tools. Let's remind ourselves that, hey, you know what? You might feel physically angry, but that doesn't mean that we have to kind of go and create that sort of anger or anything, right? We don't have to act that way. And so I think reminding clients that they have these tools, they've been learning things during these trainings, and having something to kind of reference when I'm out and about with them, or something for them to practice is very helpful. And again, reminding them these are important things. Make sure that you're writing this down in that journal that you'll be kind of going over with your therapist, because I'm not going to be able to fix these sorts of things. I'm not really the person who's licensed to address them, but there is somebody, and you should probably be writing that down. Um, Last thing I will say about DBT, it is time limited, generally, right? Again, these sort of types of therapy are the school of cognitive behavioral therapies, sort of similar therapies like this are not supposed to be incredibly ongoing, right? Typically, programs like this last maybe 6 months to a year. Obviously, sometimes there are intensive programs that will go longer, or you might find one that is very short, right? Um, Oftentimes, those shorter ones are kind of refresher courses, right? They're there to reinstill some of this training, some of these skills to kind of, uh, 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 blow off the dust and kind of remind people of the skills that they may already know. But it is meant to be something that is relatively time limited. They're supposed to, 6 months to a year. You've gone through this therapy. You've got these skills. We've taught you to apply them. Please apply them, right? There are refresher courses. There are times when you might go through DBT a couple of times to relearn some skills, or you're experiencing new stuff in your life and you would like more specific skills with what you're dealing with now. So it isn't uncommon for people to kind of, graduate from a DBT program and then go back in and then graduate and then go back in. That's normal and that's great. I celebrate those wins whenever I can. Um, but be aware that it isn't usually going to be kind of this long ongoing thing. I don't want you to think that if somebody is in DBT, they're going to be doing that forever. You might hear them say, "Yeah, I'm done with that program," and that isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Oftentimes, that means they graduated and they completed it and they learned the skills that they needed. So, um, be aware of all of this. That is an incredible. I like between you and me, I think this stuff is really, really cool. And I could probably talk for a very long time on like very specific stuff. But why would I? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Again, you're watching at home or you're driving, and again, just to bring it back to what I was saying earlier, you're driving really great. This commute's been just awesome. Thank you so much for taking me along with you. Wow, that's looking out the window. That's beautiful, right? Wow, look at that tree or car. Incredible. See, this is now the multimodal, multimedia kind of approach that Connor is practicing on. Here for it. We are constantly evolving. Uh, thank you all for watching. That kind of wraps things up for me today. I appreciate all of you who tuned in to watch me live. I appreciate all of you who are watching me at home. I appreciate all of you who are driving in your car and listening to me. I cannot thank you guys enough. Again, I want to give a shout out to all of you guys. We had our Glow Back to the '80s event yesterday, and I cannot overstate how proud of all of you I am. It is so cool to be able to see all of you guys bring our clients together and do really awesome stuff. So I think it's so cool. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope that you have just a wonderful weekend, a great start to your week, and you will see me again. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. You'll see me next Friday. So come up with questions, text me, email me, send me a letter. I don't know, however you need to. Ask me your questions. I cannot wait to answer them. I hope that you all have spectacular Fridays, and I will see you next Friday. Have a good one, everybody.